What's up YouTube, Zero here, and today I have an epic Weavile EX plus Darkrai EX in Pokemon TCG Pocket. In this video, I'll go over the deck build, which you can see on the left hand side of the screen. In this video, I'll talk about each of the individual cards, why they are good as an individual card, and then why each of these cards works well together as a part of this deck. This is an absolutely amazing deck. It is one of the meta decks, at least right now, so I do recommend checking it out, or some variations of this deck is the meta deck right now. Weavile EX plus Darkrai EX is doing very well. So before I get into it, I do want to say, if you do enjoy this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more Pokemon TCG content. I do a bunch of other video games, so feel free to check those out as well. Thank you so much in advance for doing so. Without further ado, let's talk about the cards in this deck and why they are amazing individually and as a whole. I'm going to start with the Pokemon, and there aren't many of them. There's Sneasel, which you need Sneasel to get Weavile. Sneasel is you flip 2 coins for 1 dark energy, and it's 20 damage for every head. So of course, there's a chance you do 0, there's a chance you do 20, there's a chance you do 40. This is the Sneasel from the Palkia deck. There's only 1 Sneasel in the game right now, so this is the Sneasel you're going to go with. This is a decent card. Really, you're just going to try and deal as much damage as possible before you get your Weavile. It's not going to be a huge deal if you don't deal any damage. You just want that Sneasel so you can evolve to Weavile and start dealing your damage. Now, Weavile EX. This is a very interesting card. It's 140 HP, which is a little low for an EX Pokemon. There are a lot of EX Pokemon that have 140 HP. It's okay. It's not great. Scratching Nails, though, for 1 energy, which is really nice, 1 dark energy, is 30 damage. However, if your opponent's active Pokemon has damage on it, this attack does 40 more damage. This is where it would be nice to get some damage from Sneasel. So if you're evolving into Weavile, you're already doing that 70 damage. So it's 30 basic, plus if there's damage on your opponent, it's going to be doing 40 extra, which is 70. So that's actually pretty nice. You can get Weavile EX set up really quickly. Only 1 energy, and as long as your opponent has damage on it, you're going to be dealing that extra damage. So you're going to be dealing 70 damage. So that's really quick. Again, the HP isn't great. 140 is pretty standard for a lot of EX Pokemon, but there are a decent amount of EX Pokemon in the game that do deal 140 or more damage. Not all of them, but there are a lot. Now let's talk about the last Pokemon in this deck, Darkrai EX. Darkrai EX is absolutely phenomenal right now. Not just in this deck, but in a lot of decks. Darkrai is an amazing Pokemon that is very versatile and can deal a lot of damage in a lot of different decks. Darkrai, probably one of the top 5 cards in Pokemon TCG as I am making this video. Let's talk about the basics of Darkrai EX. First, 140 HP. I just talked about it. A lot of EX Pokemon have 140 HP. It's not great when you consider there are a decent amount of Pokemon that can deal more than 140 damage. So you're going to lose 2 points if you encounter one of those Pokemon, if you're not able to take them out as quickly as they're taking you out, or as quickly as they can get their energy to take out your entire HP. However, Darkrai EX's ability and move are great combined with a lot of different Pokemon and Darkrai itself. So the ability is Nightmare Aura. Whenever you attach a dark energy from your energy zone to this Pokemon, do 20 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. That is an amazing ability to have. Darkrai can be dealing that extra damage from the bench. Where Darkrai's ability works really well with Weavile is if you have Weavile in that active slot and you already have 1 energy on Weavile, you can attach an energy onto your Darkrai, dealing 20 damage, and more importantly, just dealing damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. This activates Scratching Nail's extra damage. So now you are dealing the 20 damage from Darkrai with Nightmare Aura. You're dealing the additional 40 damage from Weavile plus its basic 30 damage. So now you're dealing 90 damage a pop. What's even better is this really easy to set up. Weavile only requires 1 dark energy, and then you just keep attaching your dark energy to Darkrai, dealing that additional 20 damage. Even better is as you're adding that dark energy to Darkrai, you're getting Darkrai ready in case it's moved to the active slot. You only need 3 energy for Dark Prism, which deals 80 damage. Now, 80 damage for 3 energy is not great. There are a lot of other EX Pokemon that deal more damage for 3 energy. However, being able to add that additional 20 for an energy equip is 100 damage if you equip an energy and then attack with Dark Prism. So you can deal for up to 100 damage with Darkrai EX. On top of that, since I have 2 Darkrai EXs in this deck, if one Darkrai EX is fully powered, meaning it has 3 energy on it, and you have another Darkrai on the bench that is not fully powered, you can equip energy onto that Darkrai, dealing the extra 20 that you need, as well as powering up that Darkrai, and then deal the extra 80 damage from your Darkrai in the active slot, so you can still deal 100 damage. This deck is very simple. There are a couple ways to win. You can either get a couple of Darkrai's out. Honestly, you can win a game with just a Darkrai, depending upon your opponent and how slow they are to set up. Because Darkrai's a basic, it requires 3 energy to get its Dark Prism for 80. However, you're dealing 20 every turn, so regardless of the active Pokemon, you're still dealing that 20 damage, which is nice. And then if you have your Weavile, you can put your Weavile in that active slot and very easily attack with it. Yes, it requires an evolution, but only requiring 1 energy is absolutely fantastic because it's pretty easy to get an attack off with your Weavile. So these two combined are really easy to set up and start dealing a lot of damage to your opponent's Pokemon. The strategy of this deck is simple. Let's beat my opponent to the punch. Let's start dealing that huge damage before my opponent can start dealing the huge damage to me. Now let's talk about the support cards. I want to start with Pokemon Communication. Pokemon Communication is extremely important in a deck that does not have a lot of Pokemon cards. So what Pokemon does is you choose a Pokemon in your hand and switch it with a random Pokemon in your deck. Since this deck does not have a lot of Pokemon, you can easily put a random, or one of the Pokemon, not a random Pokemon, but a Pokemon in your hand into Pokemon Communication, and more than likely draw the card you need from your deck. If I already have a Sneasel in the active slot, and I have a Darkrai on the bench, and I use Pokemon Communication on, say, a Darkrai in my hand, there are 3 Pokemon left in the deck. There's 1 Sneasel, and there are 2 Weavils. Obviously, in that situation, with a Sneasel in the active slot and a Darkrai on the bench, with a Darkrai in my hand, I'm going to be looking for a Weavile. Since there are only 3 Pokemon in the deck, a Sneasel and 2 Weavils, I have a 66% chance to draw that Weavile. That's where Pokemon communication is absolutely crucial for this deck build. Do not skip on Pokemon communication, because again, this deck is all about getting set up before your opponent is getting set up. Dealing that 90 damage every turn before your opponent is set up is going to be crucial. Now, what else do we have in this deck? Pokeball and Professor's Research are obvious. Professor's Research, you draw 2 cards. Pokeball, you draw 1 basic Pokemon. I'm going to be able to get what I need quicker with these cards. They are very crucial to this deck as well. We're going to be getting a lot of quick damage on opponents, whether it's from Darkrai's Nightmare Aura, whether it's from Weavile attacking really quickly. There is a good possibility that your opponent is going to be drawing back weakened Pokemon onto the bench. This is where Cyrus is going to be critical. Cyrus is utilized in a lot of decks, and it's very important right now in the meta. Cyrus, switch one of your opponent's benched Pokemon that has damage on it to the active slot. Don't allow your opponent to hide weakened Pokemon on the bench, regardless of if you're using this deck or another deck. Cyrus is crucial for pretty much every deck. Cyrus is going to be great. Definitely keep a Cyrus in this deck. Sabrina is also a really nice card. Switch out your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench. The opponent does get to choose what Pokemon on the bench they want to put in that active slot. However, this can help you stop your opponent's strategy. There are a lot of times an opponent puts a Pokemon in that active slot for a reason. Whether it's to protect a Pokemon on the bench that they're trying to build up energy on, maybe it's a Pokemon that they already have energy on that they want to deal damage with. Regardless of the reason, Sabrina is going to disrupt that strategy. That's why I love Sabrina in this deck. Not only am I hitting quick because I don't have a lot of Pokemon and the Pokemon I have are really easy to set up, but I'm going to disrupt my opponent's strategy. Sabrina is going to do this, and Cyrus is going to do this. I can maneuver my opponent's field as much as I can with 2 Sabrinas and 2 Cyruses. So these two cards are crucial as a part of this deck. Last but not least, I have 1 Giant Cape and 1 Rocky Helm. You can switch up if you want 2 Giant Capes, that's not awful. If you want 2 Rocky Helms, that's not awful. There are benefits of both of these cards, and both have a spot in a deck. It's hard to choose which one I want in the moment. However, what I like, if for whatever reason I pull a Darkrai first and I need to put that Darkrai in the active slot, I like putting a Rocky Helm on. I'm dealing 20 damage from my Nightmare Aura until my Darkrai gets set up. So while if the opponent has a lesser Pokemon that only requires 1 energy to attack, I'm either going to discourage my opponent from attacking, or if my opponent does decide to attack, I'm going to be dealing that additional 20. So I'll be dealing 40 damage, 1 with equipping Dark Energy to my Darkrai for 20, and then another being attacked, having my Rocky Helm on. Giant Cape is also fantastic because, like I said, 140 is okay for an EX, not really that great. There are a lot of EX Pokemon that deal 140 or more damage, and you don't want to be one-hit KO'd. It's going to prevent the Pokemon that can deal 140 and 150 damage from one-hit KOing either Weavile or Darkrai, whichever is in that active slot. Personally, I like having Giant Cape on my Weavile and my Rocky Helm on my Darkrai if I do get that opportunity. Reason being is because When it's all said and done, my Darkrai I really want as my end game sweeper. As I mentioned earlier, Darkrai with its Nightmare Aura is going to deal more damage. If you equip an energy onto Darkrai and then attack with Dark Prism, you're dealing 100 damage. I like that as my end game sweeper. Weavile is my early game sweeper, and Darkrai is going to be my late game sweeper. Because Weavile is easier to set up and easier to tear through enemies. Of course, it does require an evolution. However, it's easy to set up only one energy. I can have that early game sweeper, and then Darkrai can be my late game sweeper. But this deck is absolutely awesome. Let me know in the comments section what you think of this deck. Do you use something similar, and is it one of your favorite decks? It is one of mine. Until next time, peace.